We're a little bit light this morning, but I think it's got to do with the fact that it's right before a long weekend for Labor Day, holiday, or Memorial Day, excuse me. I'm trying to get this year passed faster than I but Memorial Day coming up, and that's a good time to thank our veterans in the room. Appreciate your service. Thank you very much, and look forward to having a great weekend and kicking off the summer. So we've got a good program today with Julius Peoples with Workforce Solution, Kevin Moses with Big State Electric. We're going to talk a little bit about supply chain issues and workforce problems and the things that are going on out there and how they've changed a little bit over the last couple of years. A few of our quick announcements are that there's still openings and time for the scholarship annual classic that's going to be held out at Joshua Creek Ranch. We've got a couple of good sponsors so far. We're picking up sponsors every day, so that's good. Teams are filling up, so keep pressing the word out there, and we'll get some updates out soon. On that note, scholarships applications will be closing this week or next week?
We have them closing. We're going to check them this summer. It'll be
okay.
Sometime in June.
So June. So we'll have a little.
We have one applicant so far.
All right.
So if you know a senior that's going to be anything related to this industry, or someone already in school in this industry,
yeah,
pretty easy things.
It's a big deal to get some scholarship applications into us, and that way we can award some of this money that we've been working hard to raise.
The application's on the website.
Yeah, applications on the website, all the details, all that's there. So it's easy to apply and put it back on the website. So with that, let's get some things kicked off here. Start with Kevin. Kevin Moses is Vice President over at Big State Electric. Kevin and I have worked together for a long while. Kevin does a monthly update on supply chains and things that are being challenged, and he seems to have CPS on there quite a bit. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, folks, for having me. My name's Kevin Moses with Big State Electric. Again, Kevin Moses, Vice President Pre-Construction for Big State Electric. A little bit about us is we've been in San Antonio for about 57 years. We were established in 1966. We moved to Austin, where we have a team of about 250, 300. Houston, team of about 150. And now we're in the Gulf Coast, which we're proud to serve. We think that area is going to be a big market in the future. We have about 1,000 employees. We expect about $250 million in sales this year of electrical engineering, construction, fire alarm. That should be ERRC. You guys are seeing a lot of that. Specializing in industrial wastewater, SCIF facilities, mission critical, healthcare, higher education, and office headquarters. We've been on a vertical growth path for the last 15, 20 years, and it's been a heck of a ride. We also specialize in technology, engineering, and construction, which includes voice data, security, AV and DAS systems. And we've done a little bit of facility management for select customers. We take the trash out, we mow the grass, whatever it takes. Change brake lights, you name it. 24/7 service is one of our big time moves over the last couple of years to be able to serve our customers and clients and some of the people you guys work for. One of the big things, we'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute, is VDC and prefabrication to try to attract more of the labor force. And 95% of what we do is self-performed by our own forces. So enough about us. Let's get to the good news. Workforce related issues. So Don really set the table for me. Thank you for doing that. Putting out some topics we needed to talk about. And one of them was increasing issues connecting workforce and work potential. So during COVID, we saw about a 14% decrease in production. And so those levels were not part of our bid. They weren't part of our cost of work. We just had to learn from it, and we just reap the benefits, if you will, or lack thereof. So what happened? So after COVID, we're like, okay, we're going to get back on track. No, did not happen. We've got the work ethic issues. We got people that came back kind of lethargic. They didn't want to come back. Why? We all have our opinions, I'm sure. But it's lower production for us, and we pay our people hourly. And on your job sites, we pay them hourly, and whether they're productive or not. Absenteeism. Absenteeism is huge. 20% absenteeism on jobs. We have to onboard 120 people to get 100 to show up. Which what? Results in lower production. These aren't just the same guys over and over and over and over again, the same ladies over and over and over again. It's just people not coming. They're not getting their 40 hours. And then we did a study with a select group of peers about burnout. There's a lot of these jobs, compressed schedules. Design teams have so much time to design it. We have so much time to install it. And the compressed schedules over and over, and the more workload over and over, these people are getting burned out. We really feel that way. And there's some studies up in the Northeast that support a 35% increase in divorce rate, suicide, drug and alcohol abuse. So we're really keeping our eye on burnout in the construction industry. Post-COVID, so I was asked about, hey, loss of classroom time. What did that do to us? Well, that put people at home. Well, what do people want to do now? They want to work from home. That doesn't do a lot for us. We need people on the job sites. We need people in the office to collaborate together. So now we're having to negotiate some terms to get people on, to onboard people that want to work from home. And now we got to be flexible. You know, if they have family issues or things like that, to let them work from home. And then all of a sudden, you know, it's kind of an internal epidemic to where you let one, you got to let all, right? Some measures that we use to attract candidates is innovation. We put out some feelers internal to our company saying, hey, what do y'all want to do? Give us your resume. What do you see you being productive at? What do you see your career being? And these are some electricians, these are apprentices, etc. I'm not moving the slide, sorry. And we got a lot of report back about people being gamers. Gamers. You know, what do? I saw gamers in there. So they sit at home and they play video games when they go home. Well, that's interesting because we have VDC teams. We're building jobs three-dimensionally to scale, and we're fabricating off of them. So what did we do? We brought some electricians that were gamers into our VDC team. That also attracts some of the people that don't want to be in ditches, don't want to be in the heat. You want to be an electrician? Come here. You can go build it physically or mentally. And so we have those opportunities. The easy button is pay raises. Just pay more. We're having to pay to get people on the job sites. $5 to $10 an hour at times. We've seen even higher than that, which kind of contaminates the workforce because a big job like Microsoft comes in, 300 electricians, then they're out. And then they come back, 300 electricians, then they're gone. And in order to get those people to come back and back and back, you have to give them higher dollars per hour. We heard the other day that there was a job site that when you worked your complete 50 hours, now this is not 40, 50, sometimes more, that you got raffle tickets for full weeks for the whole job. And at the end of the job, they raffled off a truck. So that was pretty cool. This was all trades on the job, so it's pretty neat. What was our largest gap? Right now, we're seeing skilled tradesmen and women, 10 of them retiring, 6 of them supplementing. So we got to pay really close attention to that. This is the stuff that crawls under your skin, Jeff. Critical path items. What do we need to keep our eye on regarding materials and supply chain issues? We've been talking about switchgear for, 2 years now, Jeff? Well, that's great when you pay a premium to get switchgear, and 6 weeks before they say they're going to ship it, they don't meet the deadline. Even though you paid a premium, they're saying, hey, we want another premium in order to meet this new one. The leverage has shifted to the factories. But if you pay that premium, what are you going to do if the utility can't get a transformer? Switchgear. How about meter cans? We can't get meter cans. We're supplementing CPS today, as a matter of fact, with 50 meter cans that we found on the East Coast that are a different catalog number than they've ever used before. Try to get power onto these buildings. Excuse me. Everybody knows switchgear, switchboards, distribution boards. These are upwards of 80 weeks to get and paying major premiums. There's a Korean company that's providing breakers that are called LS breakers that you may or may not have heard, that are building custom switchgear. But when they have supply and demand opportunities, they're going to pay a premium for it. Generators, 85 weeks, upwards of 85 weeks.
Can you go back a slide? I think is this what you're talking about? Are you talking about this right here right now?
Yes.
Slide, sorry.
My apologies. Generators come into effect on the healthcare facilities. When we're dealing with life safety, you have to have them in place in order to get a C of O in your facility. Some best practices that I recommend for design teams, for general contractors, construction management firms, is best value opportunities. Get into a design assist model. 60% of what we do is design assist, which means we get signed up early in the job to help finish the design to keep the target values achieved. And in doing so, you can do early release packages. So we can help the design teams design to what's available versus buying what we designed. Does that make sense? We go, specific to us, we go directly to the factories. We bypass the representatives so we can get direct factory communication and commitments. And then we're also buying switchgear. I think we wrote a PO for $500,000 or $700,000 to get switchboards in that we're going to sit in our prefab shop, even though we don't have a job for them. Some best practices for owners and designers: hire the best. You know, what can you do? You can do a design bid build model, and you might get what you think you're going to get, or you can hire somebody that you can depend on early on and know you're going to get what you're going to get. Again, 60% of what we do is design assist. So in order to do a great job and get 60% of our revenue, we got to do a great job.
You're saying design assist, is that kind of like CMAA?
For us, that's a good question. For us, it's a trade partner agreement that happens prior to design being done. So 50% DD, Jeff?
Yeah.
More or less? For our consultants, we're seeing a lot of flexibility. We need flexible specifications because you never know when the factory says they can't get fill in the blank. And that doesn't happen when you send the purchase order. It happens after they have the commitment, unfortunately. VE can be costly. So does everybody know what VE is?
Yep.
Value engineering?
Yep.
It can be costly to your job sites. So escalation, we have seen, has superseded value engineering when we don't make prompt decisions. So let me explain that. We had a job, $500,000 out of budget. We went to cost savings opportunities. 6 weeks later, the job with the value engineering affected was $500,000 more out of budget. So we lost the opportunity of VE. We also lost the opportunity to get our dollar for dollar. Again, for best practices that I can only recommend is design assist. And I'm a salesman, so it's something we're very successful at. It's where you can secure not only your material, you can secure your manpower. We can get leadership assigned to that job with good schedules. And when we get proactive commitments, we can commit back to our clients in order to say, hey, here's my team. I'm not going to dedicate this team to anybody but this job. And guess what? It happened 6 months in advance. Didn't happen the day we bid the job and got a contract.
Let me add a little bit to the design assist. What it does is it gives you an opportunity to identify the long lead item up front very early on, and the trade partners in mechanical, electrical, and plumbing become very critical in part of that design, because now we go to a target value design scenario where a good example is Kevin and I have a project on the east side of town, and it needed a 2,000 amp service. Well, the gear for 2,000 amps was, what, 60 some odd
60 weeks, yeah.
weeks or something like that. And we actually were able to take advantage of a 2,500 amp gear that they had sitting in their warehouse that was scheduled for another project that got canceled. So we designed around that because we had our trade partner on early in concept design as we went into schematic design and design development.
So is that how you're doing that, Jeff? I'm thinking about the CMR process and on public jobs, like I'm managing K-12 for Austin IZ. I'm very interested in this design assist because I'm just wondering how I get Kevin to engage his, resources and his costs to help me plan my project out when I can't bid anything because I don't have any design documents,
You're actually bidding and competitive. So for public work, you're actually competitively bidding the fee general conditions of not only the contractor, the CMR, but also your trade partners.
Okay.
They have to do it as well. Now, we
Okay.
put out a couple of select lists and only have 3 or 4 trade
Right,
partners on it for each division that they can choose from because we pre-selected them. But even in an open situation, you're bidding fee and general conditions and quality and staff and those kind of things. So you are competitively bidding to get past that procurement challenge. But now you've got somebody on board. What it also does is it lowers your design fees by, 15 to 20%.
Right.
Because these guys are going to have a fee to do that. The
Take some of the burden off the
contractor
AE.
doesn't have to.
Yeah.
The electrical designer doesn't have to go through all the rigor of fully designing a bid set of documents.
Right. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
It's been very successful for us. We like doing it. We want to be very good at it because, again, it's 60% of our revenue. And in order to continue with 60% of our revenue, we better do a really good job. Thanks for that, Jeff. Back to the switchgear. So thinking outside the box, there's 4,000 amp switchgear that can be dialed down to 2,500 amps. And then there's 2,000 amp switchgear that could be dialed down to 1,000 amps. So when we're looking at buying gear, we're buying 2,000 amp gear and 4,000 amp gear. And then we can certainly dial it down to whatever the trip units need to be after the fact. We don't need to wait for design to be done. Let's see, where did we go? Well, the thing keeps going back on me, doesn't it? Referencing construction management, best practices to secure labor, design assist. I'm going to say it 1,000 times. I'm happy to sit down over a cup of coffee and talk some strategies there. Early trade partner commitments, clean job sites. How do you get people to the job sites? Have a clean job site. Have somewhere they want to go. Remember, we talked about burnout. People don't want to go to work. They're not going to go to work. How do we get them to the job site? Maybe we have a clean and safe job site. We talk about lunch tents on these larger projects. There's air-conditioned lunch tents for these folks to go in and eat their lunch. Easy access. How do you get in? Do you have to park downtown 4 blocks away and walk to the job site? Maybe they don't show up that day. They don't feel like it, right? Be a partner. This construction industry can get nasty. And guys and gals go into a job site to get beat up by owners' reps, construction managers, their own foremen, project managers, and they're not going to come to work. Be a partner. Let your people be profitable. Let them make their fee. Let them make their fee. Incentivize. That's the easy way. Incentivize. For employee retention, Vince is our CEO, and Vince and I talked about this a lot. And we've had a lot of people in the industry wanting to shift from one company to the next, which gets in a competitive bid war with employees or resources, right? Which we don't want to be in. But the people that have come over to us came over for culture. They didn't come over for pay. They came over for culture. Vince talked about an open door policy, being available at the highest levels to your task-oriented employees. Be available to your employees. Have fun. 80% of your life until you retire is at work. You want to go to work. We got to have an environment at the office that's positive. hire good, high-performing teams within the company. There's nothing like some friction within a team saying somebody's not holding their own, right? Everybody's got to be doing their part. Continuous growth, let folks know that you're growing. When you grow, they grow. PTO and sick leave. Be competitive with the marketplace. Be fair, be flexible. It doesn't have to be black and white all the time. Balancing employer-employee relationship, that's more our culture. It starts at the top. And career mapping, this is a big one because we don't do a very good job of it, but we're going to start. Career mapping, where are you going to be in 2 years? Where are you going to be in 5 years? Where are you going to be in 10 years? Everybody wants to see a future internal to your organization. Pay. Get what you pay for. Talent deserves to be paid. We talked a little bit about internal to our organization about overhead, and with increasing our overhead by $400,000 increased our volume by 10 million. So you get what you pay for. And then I'm a big firm believer of innovation. We're talking AI these days. Better stay on it because it's going to be part of the construction industry before you know it. So innovation, people want to innovate. They want to be part of something, ideas, and help develop it. And we're blue-collar employers, or used to be blue-collar employers. We're starting to turn the ship a little bit to help people be part of ideas and philosophies around innovation. I will share, I'm not going to go through this in detail because I'm running out of time, but target value design, I put a little matrix together. Don, I'll share it with you if you'd like. I'll send that to you, and these are just some pros and cons to it. But I do want to elaborate on the con side. Are you getting best buck? It's always been we got to get 10 bids, or we got to get 3 bids. What does it look like at the end of the job? All that tells you is what it looks like at the beginning. So I will share this with Don, and I'm happy to share any of this information with any of you as well. Any questions? Thank you. Appreciate you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jill Peoples. I am the business liaison for Workforce Solutions Alamo. I oversee construction, logistics, oil, gas, and transportation. So this particular presentation will tell you a little bit about Workforce Solutions Alamo, how we partner with our partners, the employers, and things of that nature. And then, as you met Joshua Valdez, he'll come up and give some more information data related to the construction industry. So I'll go ahead and get started. So Workforce Solutions Alamo, our Workforce Investment Board, we serve San Antonio, Bexar County, and the 13 surrounding counties. Our goal is to strengthen the Alamo regional economy by growing and connecting talent pipelines to employers in our area. Our targeted industries are aerospace, construction, cybersecurity, education, healthcare, IT, manufacturing, oil and gas, warehousing, and transportation. And so those sectors are broken up amongst 4 liaisons, one of them being myself, and construction is one that I particularly oversee. What is the purpose of Workforce Solutions Alamo and Business Services, and who is eligible to receive our services? We're going to cover that as I go along into my presentation. So Workforce Solutions Alamo, we have a sector-based strategy that we use. I showed you the categories that we break that up into. We consider sectors, we consider them high growth and high wage paying jobs in industry. Construction is considered one of those, along with the others that were listed. We assign business liaisons to become industry experts. So as an industry expert and as a business liaison, I meet with the EDCs, the chambers, attend events as such, events with NAWIC, National Association for Women in Construction, and just try to become an expert in the construction industry. We focus recruitment to place people in these in-demand opportunities, which are our customers that come in our door, whether they're programmatic, whether they're walk-in customers, and we'll talk a little bit more about those customers later into the presentation. We make informed decisions, and we validate data by creating industry-focused groups, and we help companies retain and expand their talent pipelines. In the Business Solutions Department that I work in, we link employers with qualified job seekers. We post their jobs into Work in Texas. You may be familiar with that. It is similar to Indeed, and this is all a free service to you and to the employers, as long as you're eligible for our services. We conduct virtual and in-person job fairs. We host regional job fairs with large numbers of qualified applicants. You may be familiar with the Red, White, and U that we have every year in November. Takes place at the Freeman Coliseum. It is for veterans, transitioning veterans, their families, and the public. We provide access to federal and state subsidized training, and we also provide detailed workforce development, LMI, which is labor market information, cost analysis, and strategic employment planning. So some of our supportive efforts that we use to assist our employers is Work in Texas, which we talked about, the job fair and hiring events. Work experience. So what work experience is it is basically a subsidized employment to employers. Workforce, we are the employer of record for those employers. And so if we have someone who walks through our doors and they want to get their feet wet in the construction industry, but they have no experience, then we have the work experience opportunity available. We're the employer of record. We pay the wages. We're the insurer. You're just training them and giving them the experience that they need. So at the end of that employment training, we hope that they gain employment with you. There's no obligation. You're not required to. If they don't show up, if they're not learning the skill, you're not required to hire them. But the end goal is for them to get that training and gain employment with you.
And does that apply also to like people that could become draftsmen? Well,
Yes, so it would be any employee. It's basically they're just lacking a skill, and so if work experience doesn't work for you, then we also have OJT. So that is someone who may have some of the skills, but you're like, you know what, I need to train them on XYZ. Then we can do OJT, and basically we reimburse you for a percentage of their wages. So you're the employer of record for day one. They just qualify for our services, and then at the end of the month, we reimburse you up to 50% of their wages. We also provide labor market information that comes directly from our data analyst, Joshua, and it is customizable. So if you need labor market information for Bexar County or Kendall County, Comal County, or whatever region or whatever information you need, he's able to pull that customizable information and we'll share it directly with you. We also have funding opportunities available as well. Does anybody have any questions on the services that we provide? Sure.
So tell me about funding opportunities.
So some of the funding opportunities we have is the Fidelity bonding. That is a second chance funding opportunity that we have. Also the work experience. We have, Josh, help me, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So Fidelity bonding, just in short, is if you have an individual who's otherwise qualified for your job, but you see them as at risk because they have a background, or in the case that they've actually expanded, people who qualify, somebody who has a low credit score or various other circumstances that put them at risk, you can actually get insured against any damages or theft from your property on hiring that individual. So as we know, it's kind of when you hire somebody, you just take on that risk. Well, what if there was an opportunity for you to be indemnified against that risk in some way? Well, we offer you the opportunity to obtain that insurance. It lasts for about, I want to say 6 months, and then if you want to continue it forward, that would be at cost. But prior to that, of course,
No
there's
cost.
no cost to that program. Additional funding opportunities are like our skills development fund. So we help you partner with our board of directors, and if you feel like you need to take a section of your new or current employees and train them on a new device or train them in a new way of handling business, you can submit a bid to the federal government, and if the federal government agrees, they either cover the entire cost of that training for however many employees you have at 100% or at a contributable percentage, just depending on the type of training and the training partner. So just to give you an example, we partnered with hospitals in the past and we received upwards of $6 million to train their staff on a new piece of equipment. And that comes directly from the federal government, and it came at no cost to them. So their only other option, of course, was to do the same amount of training and pay $6 million, or simply get it from the government as a way of continuing the employment of their staff.
Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, thanks for that question. I also wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the OJT. So with the OJT and the work experience, we have what we consider a reverse referral. So if someone is not our customer and they walk into your door, as long as they don't start, you can send them to us. We can see if they're eligible for our services. And then once we get them eligible, we can put them into the work experience and the OJT. And we have supportive services for those as well. So as long as they're a part of our program, we're able to help with rental assistance, transportation, gas cards, things of that nature, childcare. So that's one of the benefits that we have to eliminate the barriers of people going back to work after the pandemic.
How about the work experience categories for
The exact same thing as the OJT. So work experience, we can do a reverse referral. If they come into your doors and they don't have the experience, you may reach out to me and say, hey, Jalil, can we schedule for them to come in and see if they're eligible? We'll get them with an eligibility specialist. The process is fairly quick. I'll say about a week. And then after that turnaround time, we'll process their paperwork and I'll say, hey, this candidate is ready to go. They're able to start. We'll do the paperwork. You'll just submit their timesheets on a weekly basis, and then we'll be paying them out for the duration of that period. You'll stay in contact with the career counselor to see how it's going. So if by week 2 you're like, I don't think this is going to work out, we completely understand. We'll part ways and we'll try to coach them, get them prepared and be job ready, and find them another opportunity.
What type of work categories does that apply to?
The construction industry, because it is a part of the sector.
Anything and everything?
Yeah, the only
Absolutely.
limitation would be a position that requires no training or skill whatsoever. Then we'd have a hard time justifying them getting training in something that doesn't require training. Construction industry is typically not going to have that type of position. It requires some type of training. So, pretty much everything from
survey field crews, right?
Yes.
They don't, so, yeah, basically, if it's a boots on the ground kind of situation.
Even if it's not boots on the ground, because construction also has administrative positions, office positions. So those are still eligible as well, because they need the soft skills. Exactly. So pretty much anything, if we can justify that that customer needs it, and each customer will have their individual job training plan. So you'll say, you know what, after interviewing them, I think they're going to need at least 2 months of this training. And then after we finish that, then we'll move on to this. And so we'll just check those hours off as they go.
I don't have very many people coming straight out of high school. They decided not to go to college.
Absolutely. So we have a youth program, which is for ages 16 to 24. So we actually target those groups in those industries. We're actually going to have a job fest for that age group on June the 1st. So we'll have employers out there. If anyone's interested in attending, let me know and I'll get the link to register. But that age group will be out there and they're looking for careers in these specific industries, aerospace, IT, construction, things like that. And then we also have a high school 2 careers event every year, and I don't have a date for that yet, but we had it last year and it was great. So the high schools came out, these buses showed up, different school districts, and these kids were able to explore careers in construction, IT, finance, transportation and warehousing and things like that. So they had made up in their minds they're not going the college route, they're not going the military route, maybe they want to do a trade or something of that nature.
If somebody's going to private school or charter school, they can still participate.
Absolutely, yes.
So depend on their individual families.
Yeah, they still have to go through the eligibility requirements, but if they qualify under those, they are eligible.
Is Workforce Solutions, is that a national program? That will not be in the local?
So we're federally funded, but I don't think Workforce Solutions Alamo is a national program.
Not the Alamo. I didn't know if Workforce Solutions was.
No.
I can help you.
We're
explain
state.
that one. It's a kind of a breakdown. So the best way to understand it is the funding stream begins with the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor funds every state's workforce development program. In our case, it's the Texas Workforce Commission. From the Texas Workforce Commission, they then split up Texas into 28 local boards, of which Workforce Solutions Alamo is one of those boards. Those boards are comprised about 51% business leaders in that community and 49% independent organization community leaders. And so they cannot spend that money directly, otherwise the inclination would be to spend on their own businesses or organizations. So they contract Workforce Solutions. Okay, so each contractor might be different for each of the 28 local boards, but we in particular have Lower Rio, that's going to be the McAllen, Texas area, Corpus Christi, San Antonio, and surrounding 13 counties, Fort Worth, and we even have a contract in Florida and in
Las Vegas, yeah.
Well, and the board's a really cool makeup because I served on it for 2 years. So there's like a group of us were public sector, a
Yes.
group of us were
Private.
private sector, a group of us were hospital. So it literally covers pretty much all the different sectors,
Absolutely.
you know.
So it's
yeah,
Workforce
really cool.
Solutions is an office that works on behalf of the board, state, and federal interests, but does so with a private company. So you get all the benefit of private employees working like a Fortune 500 business, but for state and federal interests, without the bureaucracy.
So on, if a company goes into partnership with y'all, or however that works to get those people employed, sometimes on a contract, if there's federal dollars, there's other things that get attached to that the company has to do or has to disclose. Is there anything like that where if we were to use someone from Workforce Solutions, that means that all our other projects, we have to do X, Y, Z.
No, so it'll be based on that customer. And so when you come through our doors and we make sure you're eligible for our services, the first thing we're checking is that your TWC tax ID and FEIN number are active and liable, and that you're paying that unemployment insurance. And then depending on those particular projects, then we'll look into it, but it doesn't change the discretion of everything else that you're involved in.
Well, I think further you would want to be mindful. So one of the examples that we had was we partnered with a local police department, and they had a federal grant, for instance, for every employee that they hired. So one of the things they had to be mindful of is whether or not we sent an individual through OJT work experience, because if we did work experience, they weren't actually an employee of that police department, so they couldn't enroll them into the federal funding. And in addition to that, anybody they're receiving federal funding for already, they couldn't enroll into one of their federal grant programs because that would be like double dipping.
Yes.
They're receiving it twice. So yeah, we definitely want to be mindful of it if we were to send someone and you have federal grants already, just to make sure that you don't fall out of compliance with that particular individual.
I'm gonna ask the $1 million question.
Sure.
What's your success ratio? I mean, y'all been successful getting people hired and retained?
Yes.
That's
So
kind of what we want to hear.
for sure. So it's all going to depend. So with the individual relationships that I create with employers, they come back, right? So if it's not working out, they're not going to show up. They're not going to come to the job fairs, the collaboratives. They're not going to accept the people that we send. So I know last month we had one particular employer who took in 5 people for work experience. And so we're looking forward to them completing that and actually being hired on. But to take 5 people in 1 month was a great success rate for my partner, Mary, and I. And then this particular employer also attends our job fairs, career hiring events, and also comes out to our centers to hire and recruit. So I think now people are just looking for a warm body because it's hard to get people through the doors. So I think to partner with us and be able to get those people and just make sure that they're job ready because they've met with career counselors, they have their resumes ready. So we try to make sure we don't just send anybody to an employer. We're not going to send you the best suited people or else they would be doing it themselves, right? But we try to get people who are retainable.
And the other question, too, I guess this kind of stems back from Kevin's presentation. Are you getting a lot, especially with construction, getting a lot of,
Yes. So we do have people who come in and they want to work from home, or I receive emails from career counselors, hey, do you have any work from home? But the way that the sector base is set up, I don't see it directly because if you come to me, then you know for a fact that I'm looking for construction, logistics, transportation, oil and gas. Maybe for finance, IT, things like that. My partner Rebecca may see that, but for me, not too much. I mean, if you're coming into construction, you're going to work.
We'll get an individual and they'll say, what I'm really looking for is an office job where I don't really have to do a whole lot and I can make 6 figures. And we say, hey, hey, when you find that, if you can let me know, because I'm looking for that too. And so a lot of our work there out of the center, whether it's our team working with our businesses or whether it's the center staff working with the individuals coming in, is helping to dispel a lot of those disillusions about what they can expect out of the job market, including, of course, finding a job where you don't really have to do anything, sit in an office and make a whole lot of money, because that's not going to happen. That's not reality. In that sense, getting into the segue of some of our panelist questions that we had, one of the questions that was asked was, what do we see as the biggest issues connecting upcoming members of the workforce with companies that need the labor? So as it pertains to skilled labor in the construction industry specifically, what we see as our first biggest issue is a lack of understanding of the industry itself. So a lot of our potential workforce doesn't see a very good work-life balance in the industry, not because they know the industry, because that's what they assume of it. They see that there's like a narrow outlook as far as the career they can have in that industry or what's actually available by job title. They don't know what the job titles are. What they assume is they're going to be breaking rocks with a hammer outside in the heat. That's what they assume, you know what I mean? So that lack of understanding is one of the biggest barriers to people getting into the industry just in general, because they just don't understand it. We do have a problem industry-wide across all industries of what they term the Great Reservation, which is people who are otherwise healthy and ready to work who just aren't looking for work. They just don't want to go to work. And so some of the issues behind this are just an unwillingness to commute. If it's farther than a couple of steps past their home, they just don't want to make that commute. An unwillingness to share office space with other people. The pandemic played havoc with a person's sociable skills, and we are still struggling to recover from that. And of course, flexibility of work schedule. So when they've been hopping around from job to job or taking a part-time opportunity in any other industry, there's a lot of flexibility as what they can do with their time or what days off that they have. And they don't assume that the skilled labor and construction industry have that type of flexibility.
I think there's also some challenges with the perception of what a work week really is. You know, I actually talked to a gentleman, young man, I guess I should say, because he was in his early 30s, and one of his reservations was, you may not actually have to work 40 hours a week. I said, all I want is 40 good hours out of you. I'm not asking for 50 or 60, you know, all I want is 40 good hours. And it was like, I don't know if I can do that. You know, this is disheartening, because this is some of the things that the pandemic caused, because we've allowed too many folks to work from home, and there's no accountability for that work ethic if they're not right there with you. And now that's changed how certain generations look at the way they want to work, you know.
Don't you think that the checks that they were getting, subsidy checks, also played into it, because they were getting paid to not work?
Yes, absolutely. So people were sitting home and they were collecting those checks. There were so many grants and there was funding, and then even with the government, there was the PEBT. So people weren't working and they were receiving money for groceries, and people weren't working and there was rental assistance, and people weren't working and CPS stopped, what was it? They couldn't shut off the utilities for a certain amount of time, and then people ended up behind. So I think a lot of things caused a barrier. What was meant to help has now caused an issue, and we haven't recovered from it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're getting that because all that funding dried up a long time ago, so it's no longer available.
But they're not turning around on that. They're still in that mindset, is what you're saying.
They're holding out. There for possible changes in legislation that might continue some of those programs. So we're working with them to understand that, no, that's probably not going to happen from any administration. They're just not going to reconsider opening that back up. So the last biggest barrier is now cross-industry competition.
Yes.
So for those industries, construction being one of them, that were historically offering the most and highest competitive pay maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it's no longer the case. As such, as an example, you know, I have this discussion with the healthcare industry quite often, that a lot of their positions, even say as an RN, you know, could pay upwards of $20 an hour, which is great 4 years ago, except for now I have call centers that will hire a high school diploma or GED student at $20 an hour.
Plus commission.
You know, full-time hours, and they don't really have to do much of anything, because if anything wrong happens at the call center, well, you wait for the next call. If anything happens in the healthcare industry, that could be somebody's life. So in the mind of a potential job seeker, like, well, which of the two am I going to take? Take a couple of years and go through all the study to earn the same amount to basically do nothing and just sit at a phone, or take the phone job? And so I'm working with a lot of our industries to get that competitive labor market information, find the right price point, and see, well, how competitive are we? Because we use anecdotal evidence from history in the past, you would assume that we're competitive, but are we? Especially in today's market. So a lot of people have been requesting some wage data analysis reports, and we can provide that to you, of course, at no cost.
You know, we've seen it historically in the construction industry struggles with the oil industry. As oil prices go up and the boom starts taking place again, we lose truck drivers and welders and all kind of stuff, you know, electricians. And then when that sinks and the oil prices go down, they come back looking for work again. We've always had a very competitive wage, but we're having to get more inventive as to how we supplement that wage, because a lot of the construction for projects that are on tight budgets, particularly public funds, have to deal with the increases in the escalation, but labor goes up on a regular basis. I mean, I'm looking at right now what might be 9% increases because of the inflation that's been going on. You know, well, we historically give 3, but if you've got to absorb that in the middle of a 3, if you know, you get projects go 3 years and you've got to absorb that in the middle of that, you got to get competitive on how you do that. And sometimes it's more with the kind of benefits you do, or the flexibility that Kevin was talking about earlier, and work-life balance and those kinds of things, to make that 40 or 50 hour week look more palatable at, 25 or $30 an hour, plus what I can give you out here that doesn't affect our job cost,
And for the benefit of those here, we're pretty much hearing and we're spending here is, you could interpret it as just pure cost, right? How much more cost am I going to incur? But partnering with our offices at Workforce Solutions, that's our primary focus as well, is cutting your costs, especially as it pertains to workforce development. So we're not just going to tell you, hey, we need to be more competitive and you need to pay more, but rather, what can I save you so you can reinvest in your company to do that? So a lot of the programs we're offering you are just money on the table. Take the money, use that to reinvest in your position, because we can save you anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000 in a year. That's how many positions that you could have staffed then without that additional cost. Or how much of that could you reinvest in your own workforce that you have right now and get yourself competitive enough to build that brand loyalty and get them to retain, which comes as its own savings as well if you can accomplish it. So we're going to mix those strategies into it. We're not just going to say, hey, incur more costs, but rather how are we going to save you on that?
So on the other side of that quarter, what about skilled labor? I mean, a lot of, Mike needs technicians, guys that are, they're in the field, but they're doing nuclear density tests, they're doing concrete tests, they're doing, site observations, or, they're a technical skill, but they're not necessarily, going to be out there sweating their brains out and freezing their tails off. They've got a quality of that. So
we have
the
a
technical
two-pronged approach when it comes to that kind of thing. So we do have programs that can be used for incumbent employees. If there's a way for us to sweeten the deal or reinvest in them or even train them up so that they can be comfortable with a new type of position, you can help build your own employee from within. Now, the other half of that is, of course, building your new workforce well in advance. So one of the questions was, what do we see as a gap or the biggest gap in labor? And that's going to come into a young and eager workforce, which we do not currently have access to as far as the construction industry is concerned. Because when a person is graduating, you probably answer this yourself, but how often is it that the first thought in their mind is, I want a job in the construction industry? That's probably usually an afterthought. They probably end up in the industry. They don't see it as a viable option immediately upon graduating. But one of the services that we offer is, of course, platforming opportunities. So we can get you in front of that eager young workforce. We can partner with our various organizations industry-wide, across schools, charitable organizations, even a partnership with our, it's the offices for not just migrants, but individuals who've fled their country, for instance, asylees, for instance. And those individuals come with a plethora amount of skills and labor that don't directly translate to a private industry sector, but utilizing our programs that they qualify for, we can help place them with you and you can build them into the right employee. If you need an employee to be able to speak with them and translate, we even have access to those individuals with that skill. The point is that we utilize all of our organizations and relationships across the 13-county region to provide a platform for you as the industry to say, this is what our jobs really are. This is the financial opportunity it represents, and this is why you should be in that industry. And that absolutely needs to happen, because that needs to be the first thought an individual has upon graduating is, I need a job in this industry because it's going to take care of me.
I think we're doing a better job too of getting out to the high schools and having those events to do so. We recently had a collaborative in March, and there were employers at the table who felt as if the schools don't do a good job. They press them off to college and you need to get a 4-year degree. And so we had a school district there, Northside ISD, and they said that they actually have a program. So they were able to put the argument on the table of we give them the option and we do have a construction program. So it was music to those employers' ears to know that the school districts are putting that in place and not pushing everyone to the college option. So.
What do you think the percentage of students that graduate high school percent or not, or do you guys have a sense for that?
It'd be something that we would have to look into. We could only speak anecdotally, but I think I remember the percentage floating around the 40% of people going into higher education. But that's because when you're talking about the front line, if you're not talking about just the idea that's being provided to them, they see the same issues that probably my generation have seen, which is you can go get a 4-year degree and be in debt for the rest of your life and not actually benefit from it, or you can go to a 2-year certificate program and make more money than most people make in their entire life. And so we're trying to promote to them a practical sense of what's available in the industry in our market locally. And that's the key. In our market locally, I try to promote, grow here, live here, work here, as opposed to, let's say, just as an example and as an aside, promoting software development. Because we don't have any software development employers here. So when I do that and I send somebody to a software development program, they're going to take it to the east or the west coast. So that's money that we invested in that person that they're now leaving with.
Yeah.
So when it comes to construction industry, we want to say what is available in our local market so you can live, grow, and work here. And I think, anecdotally, that a lot of people are beginning to understand that. That's a much more practical solution than going off and getting a 4-year degree, not really able to be getting hired because you don't actually have any experience, and that's what's more valuable to employer. Precisely for the same issue of what we talked about, actually completing a project. You can hire somebody who has certifications and skill on paper, but will they actually be able to complete the project? And that's a gamble that you might not be able to afford. So how much more better would it be to take a person that you actually know can do it because they have done it, right? And so that's the great disadvantage of gambling on a 4-year degree and not knowing if anyone's going to take that chance on you. So the public has seen that and they're beginning to react. So we're seeing a much less percentage of people immediately going to that option. But we on the ground floor are taking into consideration what's best for that individual. So if it seems best for them, if they want to be a doctor, you have to go to school. You have to go to school and you have to get that training and that certification and skills. But if in the midterm, we have, I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars that they've granted to the state of Texas, for instance, for infrastructure. Do our public know about that? Because that's hundreds of billions of dollars that they can have direct access to by working in that industry, right? And that's something that we're working on to do, is build public knowledge about what's available in our market, live, grow, and work here.
So your programs don't apply to college grads, right?
They do if the person does qualify. So if it seems best for them and their strategic plan, we can help them afford, their journey into a 4-year degree. If it seems like they may struggle with that or not be able to make up the other half of the funding, we might support them going into a certification program. If we see that their aptitude and skill is more so their need is to work immediately, we go into that.
I would say
So-
one barrier that we see with engineers is oftentimes a degreed engineer or somebody comes from another country to the United States for college, gets their engineering degree, and they're ready to work, but they need to be sponsored by a company, and that's costly to a company. And so we're in big demand for engineers, and they're there, but they have to get over that hurdle of, I need to be sponsored. It's going to cost $40,000 or something to go through that process to be sponsored. But that's not related to what you guys do. Right?
Not necessarily. We don't see too many of those situations, being that most of the individuals we work with actually do have all of their paperwork to begin working.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's 100% that, because we do have access to individuals that might be suitable for those needs. And we are one of the organizations you have to partner with in order to obtain that, the beginning part of sponsoring an individual. You have to post with us so that you can prove to the federal government that nobody locally has the ability to fill that job, so forth and so on. So we work with the entire public. Yes, sir.
This is a question coming from our treasurer, actually out of Austin.
Okay.
Her name is Abby, and she is actually on, and she can say hi.
Hi. Thank y'all for
So,
So, two questions are, sorry, do you have a contact that we can recommend for firms in Austin? Because our chapter is so large, we cover from Austin to the Valley. And do you work with community colleges on some of the training you've mentioned?
Yes, in both cases. We'll make sure that you get Ms. Jalil's contact information. We do actually have the Austin contract, so I know the direct personnel you'd want to partner with in that area. We can get you connected directly. And I would say all of our training programs that require any type of classroom interaction are partnered with our colleges and universities in the area. They do have to be a part of what's called the ETPL, or approved by the Texas Workforce Commission list, as a training provider. But as long as they are on that list, which also brings up another good point I'll bring up, we can partner with them for these various training opportunities if it requires classroom instruction. Now, the advantage that y'all have as employers in our area is that we can get you access to that list. And if there's any known training providers that you prefer over others, when we're partnering to train people for your future workforce, we can funnel them directly through that program. So one of the organizations we work with was Accenture. They're a multi-billion-dollar multinational company. And so I told them, look, point blank, of all these training providers that we have, which are going to actually produce the people that you need? And they said, these 2 schools. And I told them, okay, everybody I send are going to go through these 2 schools. And when they come out, we're going to set them with your office through our work experience program. And then you know for certain that they got educated in the way that you prefer. And you have all that time at no cost to you to turn them into the right employee. And we had about a 85% placement rate with them.
No, that's great.
It was about 60 individuals, and they make way more than I do. So, you know, it worked out.
So we've got the information for them on the screen. Everybody can see that. We'll also have this posted on our website where you can get to it as well. And hopefully we've gotten a lot of good information today. We got about 3 more minutes, but I want to just ask one quick thing. So we've mentioned it a numerous times about if the person qualifies, the qualifications. What are the individual workers' qualifications to be participating in these things? I mean, it sounds like there's some stage gates and some thresholds they need to cross. What are those so we know what we're looking for?
So we won't overburden you with a complete list because those are also personal questions you wouldn't want to ask an individual in order to send them to our office.
Right.
The main strategy for reverse referral, as we discussed, would be if you feel like this person would be otherwise great for your company, but you can't justify the cost because they're just shy of the experience that they need, send them to our office. Don't necessarily worry about whether they're eligible or not. Send them to us so we can check.
Okay.
But just to give you a summary of things that qualify an individual would be if they're already receiving assistance from the state, this would be unemployment insurance, SNAP or TANF benefits or anything like that, they would qualify to be sent through these programs. It is based on their income. So if a person loses their job through no fault of their own, but they have over 6 figures in their savings account, probably not going to qualify because, you know, the state figures, they probably have some time to move around before things become an issue, right? That's not the case for most people who face that situation. So one of the qualifying factors is them losing their job through no fault of their own. Our OJT program is specifically set up for that because our emphasis is to get them right back into the workforce prior to them requiring any type of assistance. To incentivize that, that is why we reimburse any hiring employer through that program a percentage of their wages so that we can facilitate that process as quickly as possible. That keeps money in our economy, that keeps that person employed, you staffed, so it's just overall better for the local economy when we do it. So we would love to provide you all with more specific information about how these programs can be tailored to your individual organizations and places of employment. So by all means, reach out to us. Ms. Jalil, I'm always going to be in support for her position with hardline data so that we make strategic plans that make sense for you and your company. And the emphasis, of course, of our efforts is to cut your costs so you can reinvest in the form of your current or future workforce.
And if there's any more questions on what Kevin was talking about, target value design, early procurement through the, the process of bringing trade partners on as part of the RFQs or RFPs, I'm happy to visit with you about it. I've been doing it for about 2 years now. We've been very successful with it. Happy to share what our kind of strategies have been.
I'll say this has been fantastic, and we're going to want to bring y'all back on a month that's not right at graduation, so we have a bigger crowd.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we'll definitely be bringing it. Great topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to be reaching out to invite you all to our
Yes.
collaboratives. So please share with me your business cards.
Absolutely.